Hello and welcome to Inspiring Hope. I'm your host, Lois Herman, and I'm here to shine a light on people who are making a difference in our world. And today I have a very special friend who has a complex and very interesting background. I'm going to let her share with you her story as how she's gone from Western medical professional into a holistic professional extraordinaire. So, Kristin Hurley, tell us your story. Welcome, welcome.
Ooh, extraordinaire. I like that.
Of course.
Well, thank you for having me on, Lois. Yes, my first podcast. So I was a little nervous, but it's like, that's okay. That's why I'm here. And I'm hopefully here to inspire some people
That's right.
to just just get past yourself and move past the fear. And I think on the other side of fear is everything you always wanted. So maybe I'm an example of that.
Fight everything and rise, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay.
So, I mean, I'm a wife. I've been married to my husband, Tom, for, I don't know, 37 years or so. And
That's an amazing thing in and of itself in this day and age.
yeah, 5 years in the trenches before that, that always counts.
It does.
And I have two wonderful grown children and they have wonderful spouses. They're nice and settled. I have two granddaughters right now and another grandchild on the way, which is a mystery child.
All right.
We don't know if we're having a little boy or a girl, but that's going to be wonderful. Quick background on me. I started in the healthcare industry probably over 30 years ago. So I started off as an EMT and emergency medical technician. I lived up in northern New Hampshire, and I did it because I was a young mother and I just kind of got rooked into it and liked it and came down and moved down to Milford, New Hampshire, and became an EMT intermediate, but I realized that wasn't really for me. It was too much unpredictable stuff, and I'm a Virgo, so I need predictability. So I did go to nursing school at St. Joseph's School of Nursing, and I was an LPN and worked as an LPN for 5 years. 5 years later, I went to Rivier University and became an RN. So
Right.
I've been doing this again for probably in the healthcare industry over 30 years. Um, and it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful career. And I've worked in various areas of like long-term care rehab. And I was a clinical case manager and a staff development coordinator and a wound care specialist and blah, blah, blah. I really loved it. And I still to this day hold my Western medicine nursing license, but I really felt like something was shifting for me. And this is where Lois comes in, everybody. So I have to give homage to where it is due. I was pretty lost at that point. I was burnt out. I think like a lot of nurses can go through physically, kind of mentally, emotionally, and just needed to do something different. I wanted to get much more back into the health and wellness continuum of nursing, and I was seeing it going much more towards sickness and procedures. So it just wasn't for me. But I do keep my license because I worked hard for that. And I went to Lois because I just needed some help. So through hypnotherapy and some Reiki and lots of love and support, I was able to break through a lot of things. And it just opened the door. And boy, did it open it, because then I dove in. I dove into education. Again, I was already a Reiki master, but through some of my own journey of healing myself, I was introduced to EFT, otherwise known as emotional freedom technique or tapping. Yep. And that was such a game changer for me. And I went in, and this is when I wasn't working. So I remember going in, having an agenda, like I'm going to tap on whatever today. And I was really feeling guilty because I didn't have any money. And so we tapped on that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you meet people where they're at, because otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. And it was such a great thing that I thought I need to learn how to do this, because I thought, how am I going to afford to keep doing this? Well, if I got to level 2, I could change and exchange meetings with other people that would help me, and it would be a free exchange, but with people all over the world. So we were kind of practicing on each other.
Mhm.
And then I went up to the practitioner level. So that was a lot to get to that, but I absolutely love it. And it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving for people.
And
And
to interrupt you for a second, a lot of these different techniques that we learn in order to teach, we benefit from the exchange. I'm just finishing up an NLP training, neuro linguistic programming, with a group of people, and they are blown away by how much, in order to practice to work on other people, they're working with one another, and they're clearing all kinds of blocks that they've had using these simple NLP techniques. Same thing with the EFT. As we learn it, we clear the stuff in our path so that we're better equipped to help other people, right?
It is amazing. We do our own work. One of the things they preach to us is like, do your own work so you're not bringing your own garbage and projecting your own stuff onto clients. And also, it's very interesting on that realm that if I had something in particular, like I was worried about money or something, I'm going to attract the type of clients that are worried about money
That
or
is so
have money issues. So I find that it's a wonderful clue into what's happening in my life and my energy field of the type of clientele I'm attracting. So it's just another thing that I use for my benefit. It's like, okay, well, maybe I want to work on that in myself. But yes, we call it borrowing benefits. So
okay.
as we're talking, if we have anything that's on that realm of whatever the subject matter is that we're tapping on, and we talk and tap on those meridian points as we're going, if I had any issues with that, it's going to be calming and sending a calming signal to my body at the same time. So borrowing benefits, it really is the gift that keeps on giving, and it works very quickly, oftentimes with permanent effect. Everybody's different and everybody has different layers of that. But it's one of the things I love. I'm very open with clients, and I love doing this to this day, because in my younger years, I was very private and just didn't want to show anybody any flaws, God forbid. And now I just kind of embrace it and say, look, if I can't be open and honest with people, how am I expecting them? And how am I going to attract that into my life? So I'll tell them, look, I struggled with this for years, with self-doubt and some depression and anxiety. And through tapping, it really made the difference. Because as we're talking about something that we don't like, and that's what we do, we call out the elephant in the room. And I help the client really hone in on the details by just kind of looking at their expressions and how they're reacting, what seems to be bothering them the most. And we talk and tap, and we're starting to block that signal in that primitive part of the brain. That's just the non-thinking part of the brain that squirts us full of all that adrenaline and the fight and flight, freeze and flop response, and it blocks it. So as we do that, when we get down layer by layer, it really can make a big shift in somebody. We're always testing. When we came in, you were like way up here with anxiety, which is the worst it could be. And now you're way down here, and they feel the difference immediately. And that was a game changer for me, because of all the years that I had done counseling and whatnot, I loved my counselor. He was awesome. God knows he had helped me through a lot.
Yeah.
But that's all the frontal part of your brain, the thinking part of your brain. And that's fine. You can know what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing and all that, but that goes offline the second you are triggered by something.
Yes.
And this is where tapping's the game changer. So as we're talking about what we don't like.
And triggers can come from a smell, a song, a person that reminds you of a situation. It is amazing as we live our life how we can become triggered by different events or different situations, and have a tool to use for yourself to shift when you notice that things are something I'm not feeling well, using the tools that you discovered.
Absolutely. It can really take you off guard. And I tell clients that the stronger your reaction to something, the deeper it goes, usually. And we all see it in our everyday life. Anybody who's on Facebook sees people go down the rabbit hole and the arguing and the name calling and throwing. It's that, and now I have so much more compassion for that, and compassion for myself. I realize those are just triggers. They're triggers to deeper things. And it's so nice to know that we can get to the bottom of what that is pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. Well, you do the tapping, but you also are really into emotion code as well.
I love emotion codes.
When did that come into your world? Because you do that, and you're huge with your biomagnetics.
Oh yeah.
Is another. So you have a bunch of tools in your toolkit.
it's layers of this. So it's really interesting how it all unfolded. I started with the tapping at the same time. And I'll definitely get to the emotion codes because I am passionate about that. I think that's my new favorite, probably. I went to after I did it was in, I should say, my training for a practitioner level with EFT. I went to the Boston School of Herbal Studies because I also I have my primary care physician, but I went to an Ayurvedic doctor or Ayurveda, however you say it. And that's like ancient Indian medicine. And I just did a lot of the internal sort of cleansing and looking at diet. You and I have talked about it. It's so many different modalities of what kind of gets us there, the quality of the water I'm drinking and all of that. And so it really inspired me after starting to feel a lot better from that. I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to do my own tinctures. And everything I think was looking forward into the future. I need to take care of my family. I need to have things to pass down to them like the elders did years ago. And I really felt strongly about that. And this is all pre-pandemic. So it was really something in my soul woke up. And so I love my herbs and I do my own tinctures and all of that. And that's a lot of fun. And I think it's very supportive to the things I do. The biomagnetic therapy came into play probably, I think it was in 2020 that I started my business. And I worked at a health center down in Nashua for a year. And I would do the holistic intakes for clients coming in. And they were primarily coming in to do this thing called biomagnetic therapy. I had never heard of it. Biomagnets they're amazing. And I thought, again, wow, this is a game changer. This is something I really want to learn and I want to be able to pass down to my family. And it really seemed to make a huge difference for people who had been seeking out traditional treatments and therapies and nothing was working. Right. And we're talking really good things too, like massage and chiropractor, and they all are still wonderful. I would never discount that. It would get them to a certain level, but it wouldn't. And sometimes they actually even release toxins and stuff that they were having a hard time dealing with. So really, I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And again, it was another investment. And I want to share with people. I was afraid. I didn't want to go down to New Jersey by myself. I made my husband come with me and plan a trip. But these are the things I had to do to push myself through my fears and things that would have been a roadblock. And I really like sharing those things with people because I think people think, oh, Kristin, she's lucky. She just gets everything she wants. It's just not true. I really have to push myself.
A lot of people go down that path. I've heard a lot of people, oh, well, they're just lucky. No, it takes work, determination, dedication, and struggle. There's a lot of financial and time struggle to invest in these different arenas that we choose to go down. Too many people are comfortable in their complacency. And it takes a certain drive to push ourselves out of that complacency. And it's uncomfortable. However, there is an inner drive that says, I've got to do this. And I'm very familiar with the Biomagnetic Protocol. I was involved with it when it first came into the forefront in New Hampshire. And I was very impressed with how well it works on different types of infection types. And you can go into it a whole lot better, but it started off with Lyme, and then it was also so many other co-infections and layers. And it's one of those so simple things that you lay down and the practitioner puts magnets on you and you lay there and you just have the magnets render anything in its path to a pH neutral. That's my impression. So I'll let you describe it because you've actually studied it. I was in business with several people who were practicing it for years, and I saw the benefits and I experienced the benefits of it myself. It's amazing. It truly is amazing.
I love it. It has been amazing. It's another one of those things. I say it's a game changer, and I love to be able to incorporate when I do like a nursing intake for somebody who comes in and they don't know where to start. Where do we start? Do we start physically? Do we start more mentally? And And I've come to the conclusion that it's like, if somebody's in pain, you're not going to get that far with them, mentally or anything. You've got to address again, what's the biggest issue in front of me. And now I incorporate muscle testing on that on my own to try to triage what they need. So when they're there, I might say, would they benefit best from biomagnetic therapy or EFT? And I've honed in my little way of muscle testing, and this, you can look up kinesiology and all the different ways of muscle testing, but I do a little finger twitch thing like this, and that's my no, and this is a yes. And it's just amazing. I tap into that energy, that subconscious energy of the person in front of me, and it sounds woohoo, and boy, does it work. And she's got trust.
And as a hypnotist, one of the things we learn is how to use a pendulum. And then other dowsers use pendulums. A lot of people use pendulums for their yes, no. That's a form of kinesiology dowsing. And the finger, just the muscle testing that is used for biomagnetic protocols. I believe that you guys have muscle testing down.
Yeah,
it's it is amazing. The different people that I've known who do the biomagnetic protocol, they're huge. They're hugely skilled at kinesiology or muscle testing. Yeah.
Takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of trust in yourself. And boy, again, I share with people, I struggled with that. So when I went down for the course, I had that preconceived notion in my head. It's like, I think I'm a nurse. I can learn things. I can be very organized. I can get the book smart stuff and the theory and all that. The practical, I understand the function and structure of the human body, like, yourself. And so I wasn't worried about that or dealing with clients. I was more struggling with myself. And I had to practice EFT on myself. What is my barrier? Why am I struggling with this? Once again, my buddy Lois here helped me hugely with that. And I was already doing my biomagnets, and I was doing it. I just wasn't at the level with my muscle testing that I wanted to be at. And through some energy clearing that you and your team did with me, opened up that pineal gland. And there's where this came in. And it was within a week. And it was fascinating. Yeah. So again, you have to know who to reach out to when you're struggling, and don't suffer in silence. There's another little plug, but.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. Don't suffer in silence. I'm getting ready to do a little vignette that says, hey, if you're struggling, reach out. I myself was having just a really yucky day the other day, reached out to my team, and I just needed a bit of a clearing. So it is amazing how in this crazy world we live in, there's stuff that we get that kind of gets stuck to us in our mind, body, or spiritual energy layers, and we have to keep it clean. We have to keep it focused. And in order to be able to stay focused, we've got to keep our energy flowing. So
How to do it.
I didn't realize that your special type of kinesiology came after that clearing.
It did. It did. And it's been a game changer again, because it's faster, it's more accurate. So my clients benefit from that as well. So the biomagnetics itself, I'm kind of even looking at a little my notes so I stay on track. And I feel like I always have to do this legal disclaimer when I talk about biomagnets. I'm not curing anybody. We don't cure, Do they feel a heck of a lot better? Do their symptoms sometimes completely disappear and not return? Mm-hmm. But I can't cure them. That's not a word I can say. So when we do this, we're assisting the body basically in regaining its self-healing capabilities. And as Lois had said, we're naturally, by stabilizing the pH levels in the tissue and stimulating the immune system, this is what the biomagnets do. When I precisely place the magnets on certain parts of the body. And I do that after I muscle test to find out what's going on, what's the underlying stuff that's their symptoms that I can help them with. And it temporarily alters the pH. I call it like putting the Trojan horse in there. So it's temporarily altering that. So we kind of neutralize the pH, and whatever little pathogen or little critter, I call them, pathogen can be like, bacteria, viruses, mold, you get it. Anything that's there is living in an environment that's really comfortable, and it might be too acid, it might be too alkaline, but it's great. So when I help the body to neutralize that, it creates the optimal environment so that now the immune system can see and recognize what's there, kill it off, And then there's like a die-off process from that. So I go very gentle. And I also ask the body, how much can they do today? How often do they have to come in? So it's very, very unique. I shouldn't say very unique, it's just unique. And it's very specific to the individual person. But it can help with so many different things, increasing your circulation, your oxygenation, your help normalize the response to inflammation in the body, which most of us have inflammation from our diets alone, and just chronic stress and whatnot. And it helps with all kinds of things, autoimmune diseases, anywhere from GI disorders, sleep disorders, respiratory, Lyme disease, as you said. And people notice good results. I encourage people, once they start with magnet therapy, to eventually purchase a starter kit of magnets, so that I'm happy to help them to say, this is where I want you to place this. And especially if you get hurt, or my favorite, something as simple as poison ivy, which my son tends to get. Unbelievable. I have treated him actually remotely for poison ivy. So when I say that, for example, he got it on his arm really bad last summer. And I said, just show me a picture and tell me where it is. And I just kind of pull in my Reiki, because I can do that. Why not? Sure. Pull in that energy. And I place the magnets on myself in the correct spots for inflammation and drainage. Okay. And then I increase the circulation, which accelerates the healing. And he felt so much better before bed. And by the next day, he said he felt like 90% better, huge improvement with the physical symptoms. I repeated the pairs because it's poison ivy and it can be really nasty. Sure. But when we think about it, it's just the pH is way out of balance, and it's allowing the ivy to just get into the body and go systemic, and it cleared it up beautifully. And I didn't even have to be there in front of him. I did it remotely, and I've done it a few times for him now for that. So
the remote treatment for biomagnetic is new to me. So that's pretty fascinating. And yet I'm a Reiki master teacher, and I know how powerful sending Reiki remote can be. So it's a similar type of a thing. Yeah. Amazing.
So helpful. You can do this. Truly, there's no end to what you could do. If somebody was literally in a coma or something, you could tap in. If you had permission from the person who's speaking for them at that point, may I tap into their energy? And if there's a yes, we can tap into that. We can find out what's going on and help support them. I mean, it's just such a wonderful thing, and it's limitless, really. And it's just having that trust. And the proof is in, do they feel better? Did they make an improvement? And I've done this quite a few times with people. You can also do this for animals. So people don't realize that. Oftentimes, if you have an animal, you, again, have permission from the owner, and you tap into the energy of that animal, and you start asking, what is it? What's going on here? Your leg, you're limping on this leg, did you hurt this? It's yes, no questions. And once I find out what it is, I basically would treat that for trauma. And I have like a blow up sort of illustration of a dog or a cat, whatever it is. And I place the magnets there. I intend the energy for them. 15 minutes later, according to where we are in the world, we're in the Northeast, so we're a little bit away from the equator. But 15 minutes later, I take off those magnets. I make sure I detach from the energy also, to not make sure I'm picking up stuff energetically. And I just ask, how are they doing? Are they feeling better? Whatnot. So do it for children.
People don't realize that the animals, where we talk about toxic elements and agents in our air, food, water. Well, the animals are walking on the ground. They're the closest to these toxic elements. Maybe they're indoor cats, for instance, but we bring the outside in, and they can pick up on all kinds of these different toxic agents. So we have to keep them healthy and strong.
Absolutely. And they absorb emotions.
Yeah. Yes. Emotions is very true. Yeah.
Bringing me right to emotion codes.
Yes.
So the emotion codes through biomagnetic therapy. I should back up a little. When I went down for the trainings, I went down for a couple different trainings with Dr. Luis Garcia. And in the first level training that I had gone to, I was actually energetically chosen as the model or the guinea pig at the end. And I kind of knew he was going to pick me. I told him that in the class. I'm like, I knew you were going to pick me. And it's there's good and bad. I won the lottery, but I obviously needed the most work. So it was fascinating. And at the end, he does emotion codes. So all the magnets are sitting and they're cooking and doing their thing. And then he's asking the body, do I have a trapped emotion that can be released that would be impacting my life in any sort of a negative way? And he hit on 3 separate emotions that was so spot on. And the first one he hit on was incredible. And it was sadness. And it was inherited from one of my parents. And I've since shared with them. And I said, my gosh, if you can get rid of that, what do I need to pay you? I said, this is lifelong. And the sadness, again, was an inherited thing. And I never had heard of such a thing, but it makes sense. You inherit genes and all these traits from your parents. Why can't you inherit emotions? And
Absolutely.
so in getting rid of that sadness, that was another huge shift in my life. Something I had carried. It wasn't mine to carry, and I always knew it. And once it was lifted, I was a new person. I did not have that lingering sadness. It made a profound shift in my life.
And let me ask you then, if you've changed it for yourself now, have you changed it for your future, the lineage of your children?
Such an excellent question. So I, at the time, didn't know what I didn't know as far as asking questions. So anybody, let's just say from my 2 children, my son and my daughter, if they had inherited that through me, everybody gets the benefit of it. So let's just say, for example, it went through my mom and then it went back. Let's just say she inherited through her grandparents or her grandmother. It can get very specific. Anybody who's on that line, you find where it starts. And then it's just that tree branch sort of thing. Everybody gets the benefit of it. So when it falls off of me, it falls off of everyone, and the person who I inherited it from. So just fascinating, the difference it can make. You're not healing, you're healing generations at that point. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. You can heal spirits that have passed, souls that have passed on the other side that weren't able to resolve whatever it was. And this time, and
that may well be why they're still there with our unresolved issue, because of an unresolved emotion. So many times we find spirits that are stuck in between because of their sadness or their guilt or their anger. When their energy vibration is low, if they're not at a high enough vibrational level to ascend into the divine light. So that's a wonderful tool for people who are stuck in between.
Right. And if you've ever seen Dr. Bradley Nelson, who does the emotion codes, and I'm not an emotion codes, like specialist or anything like that yet. It is it was such a fascination with me. And I was already doing this through biomagnetics anyway, through my training. But being a Reiki master, having been born, I know, with some intuition and abilities to connect to other sides and whatnot, I just started playing around with it, reading the book, delving in, and it was just so natural. It came so natural to me. And that's on my list. That'll be my next thing I dive into and get probably that certification for it. But you don't always have to be certified to, do real good with, that's the discernment you have to say. It's like, well, am I putting a new roof on my house this year, or am I doing this course?
And I agree with you, because I learned EFT, goodness, it's got to be 20 years ago, from a woman named Marilyn Gordon. And this was, I think, before the whole certifications came out. She was from California. I met her at a conference and I loved the work that she did. So I took a seminar from her. And I have long done EFT, but a very abbreviated. I would do it, and I still do it with clients, teaching them and using it for relaxation, using it to induce a trance state. So then people have taken it so far beyond and above and beyond what I initially learned it for. So it's amazing. But yeah, I use it and I teach it with my clients and with some of my students, but I'm not one of the certified EFT practitioners. That's a whole nother realm.
And I'm just very open with clients, again, some people that's, like going back to my RN license, that some people want to know that I'm a Western medicine, I'm a, registered, RN. And I am, but at the time, it's not something I really even have to have anymore. And, I keep it because my mother would shoot me if I got rid of my license. I work way too hard for it. So I hold on to it still.
Good for you. Yeah.
The and yeah, going back to EFT, that we actually call it, they'll say emotional freedom techniques, because there's all different techniques you can do to sneak up on things. And again, if you had something unresolved with somebody that's passed away, there's a technique where you talk about it, like you're talking to the person, even though they're not there, it's not making the connection that you didn't exactly just have that conversation. And then you talk almost as if you're them. So it's so neat to lead people through that and the downloads of what they get. And they come out of it with having so much more information and a lot more compassion a lot of times for where the other person was coming from. So we don't know what makes people act the way they do. And I love doing that with animals, because why is an animal acting out badly and everything? Why are they biting? Why are they peeing on your bed or something like that? So
Right. Wow.
The emotion codes just helps to release that unseen baggage that we have. They can often result from, sudden disappearance, like really a physical symptoms that we've been having after somebody goes through like an emotion code. Emotion codes that I'm finding particularly fun to work with nowadays are the heart walls. So oftentimes clients will have your heart just through anything that you've gone through in your life. If you've gone through a lot of trauma or whatever, it's a survival sort of thing that your mind, body, spirit sort of does to protect yourself. And it can put a wall around your heart. And that can really impact somebody's life, because although the body and everything's thinking it's protecting you, it can really hold you back from things. Like I was an example of that why am I so afraid to do, to travel by myself or something like that? And do I have a heart wall, that's there that can be released today? And if I get a yes answer, I start going through a process, which row it's in, which column it's in, and I really hone it down to, is this, is it mine, or did I inherit this? Because that's important to distinguish. And once I do that, the magic, I use my magnets. Now, you don't have to use the magnet. You can actually use your magnetic field and just using your hand, swiping on any place on the governing meridian of your body. And I didn't explain meridians a lot, but when we tap, a quick explanation would be, if you understand acupuncture, this is acupressure. So we're tapping on these think of it as like little rivers or channels of energy in the body that connect to everything, all your organs and whatnot, that are blocked somehow. So with emotion codes, we discover that emotion and we want to release it, we take a magnet and we swipe on the governing meridian's the big guy. It's like everything goes to that master ship. Think of it that way. And it's like taking a magnet and holding it up against your credit card strip. If you rubbed it on that or put it too close, it just like kind of decodes.
That's a really great analogy. Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. So we take this magnet and we take it, and if I don't want to mess up my hair, and it's so funny, but if I don't want to mess up my hair, I can go to the back of my head and I just swipe down as far as I can. It starts under your upper lip and goes all the way up and over and ends at your tailbone, or reach around behind, and I just swipe and release, swipe and release. I do that 3 times. If it's mine, 10 times if it's inherited. Sometimes I do it more because I'm a feeler and I can feel that energy moving and leaving. The clients feel it moving, and it just decodes it from the body. It kind of grabs it and decodes it. And the results that they have they're fascinating. And oftentimes they'll get this, they'll cry, or they'll feel the chills and whatnot. They feel the energy leaving, and the body will reassimilate that very quickly.
What's fascinating is we are energetic beings, and everything you're talking about, from the EFT, emotional freedom technique, the tapping on different meridians, because that's what the tapping is on meridian points as well. So and then the biomagnetics is on meridians. You're using the biomagnets to neutralize energy points. So none of this is, you see, this is all in that energy field around us, but we don't, I often like to say, we don't see electricity, but I'm not going to stick a fork in that wall outlet. Because you don't know what you're going to get. And so it's
Yeah.
amazing. But all three of these, between the EFT and then the biomagnets and the emotion codes, are all dealing with meridians and
Yeah.
the unseen energy in our world, in our sphere.
Well, we know too, you can measure it with people who do the EKGs for the heart or for the brain. They can also, yeah, and they can measure it through the electromagnetic field. It's extremely powerful. They realized this when the astronauts went to space and they came back, and one limb would be a little shorter than the other because they were away from the magnetic pole of the Earth. And it would have to take 6 weeks or so before it would start coming back into balance when they were back and kind of grounded to Mother Earth and had that. So that the science behind that's really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and I have just learned to come up with my own little version. And this is another thing that I encourage people to do, because we're taught one way. And biomagnetics, for example, is like drinking from a fire hose, the amount of information that floods you.
Right.
So you need to find what works for you and where you're comfortable and where your client's comfortable. So oftentimes I might combine some techniques by doing a little tapping, or deep breathing is always wonderful to help physically relax the body, and or a little guided imagery, to give that away. Sometimes we give it away that way as we swipe, and it kind of comes to me. That'll be like a little download, like, oh, I can feel it when somebody's there with me and say, we're gonna give this one to grandma or whoever it is, and have them box it up and contain it and take it away, and they're very happy to help. And it's so healing, and that just comes. And so now I don't question that anymore, and people can think what they want. And it's when you get to that point, that's where you can really start helping people. So
I know that when you do the biomagnetics, a lot of times when people do biomagnetics, you're laying there with the magnets on, cooking for a period of time. And oftentimes people will do Reiki. You do emotion code while people are resting with the magnets for a period of time.
Absolutely. And that also brings up a good point too, Lois, because when my initial appointment with somebody, I put like a little booster underneath their knees, and I put these crazy little half shoes on to see if their feet are lined up correctly. If they're not, we can help correct that, a shortening of a limb, and that's fascinating. But oftentimes a lot of my clients can't tolerate lying flat. They might have real respiratory issues. Maybe their back really hurts. One client, or I've had clients that really, if you lie them down, just their bladder can't, it's just positional, where they have to pee every 2 seconds, and you can't keep magnets on somebody for 15 minutes if they have to keep getting up. So they can sit up in a chair if they have to. So somebody, if they had some physical limitations, or if they were in a wheelchair or something, you don't have to get them up and reposition them. And I have a bed that I can just, it's nice and hydraulic, so I can put their head up and their legs up, and they're really cozy. I put that up for them, get them all cozy, so they're really relaxed.
Another question that I know that there sounds to be some sort of a reverb, I'm sorry, but I have clients around the world, and I like to try and have some of my clients, I'm a big believer in referral. The work that I do is wonderful for certain things, but we all need a little bit of different things in order to help with our own personal healing journey. So I do a lot of referral for biomagnetic, and you do this remotely. So some of my clients who could benefit from this, you can do this via remote sessions. What does that take? They just reach out to you through your website? How would they find you?
Absolutely. Yep. So they could go on my website, which is Wishing Wellness, NH for New Hampshire.com. So wishingwellnessnh.com, or they could go to my personal email or Gmail address, which is KristinMHurley@gmail.com. And I always say Kristin is Kristin, because oftentimes if they do the EN, they're not going to reach me. So
we'll put all of that in the text.
Yeah.
But they could reach out to you, and you could actually do session work with them from afar That's great.
Absolutely. And they can self-schedule if they want to that way, or they can, reach out to me and we'll talk and come up with a time. Because I've worked with people, I think the furthest person away I worked with was in Norway.
Wow.
And I mean, people all over the world. I've worked with people in Africa and Canada, all over.
In all
And
ages as well, all ages and animals too, but
yeah, yep. And it's different with everybody. So if it was a minor child, anybody under 18, I have to have the parental permission and whatnot. And I always take it kind of case by case. Usually I would do for biomagnets, I'd like to do kind of a nursing intake at first to find out. It's the old ambulance girl in me. If somebody's got a broken arm, I'm like, yeah, what else is wrong? So I'm looking at their forehead and all of that. So I want to find out a little bit of everything so that we can, I want them to get the best benefit possible is what it is. Not just have that acute thing that's happening, but see if there's other layers of it that we can help them with. And yes, so I can do all different ages. If it's a really little kid, oftentimes they recommend that you place the magnets on the parent if the parent's there. It can be like a surrogate for them. I have a little human body sort of thing that I spread out on my table and I place the magnets there. I can place it on myself. So there's all different ways you can place it and really intend the energy for them. Yeah, and it works beautifully. And that's for EFT. It's for, biomagnets and motion codes. It's wonderful. Yeah.
why do people come to you? What is the number one reason people come to you?
Well, they often find me once it's through a lot of by mouth referrals is what I get. And it's often that they've tried everything and they're very resistant to trying something that I do. But then they get desperate.
Yeah.
I do get clients like that. And they're like, all right, I'll try anything. So, I always thank them. I'm very so grateful that they came in and they allow me that chance and that opportunity to help them. And so the most common things that people come in for is usually like this time of year, I'm getting a lot of people that have cough that just will not go away.
Okay.
Or they might have like a chronic pain somewhere, like in their knee or their back, or loss of range of motion. A lot of autoimmune stuff. We're starting to see, unfortunately, a lot more autoimmune things these days. Gastrointestinal tract stuff, people who have IBS. And again, a lot of respiratory stuff. In the summertime, that's why I put out that something as simple as like poison ivy, chronic headaches, traumatic brain injury, anybody who's had bad concussions and whatnot. It's wonderful for helping to, even if it's years, decades prior, reducing that inflammation, to help the body to drain that to a drainage point, and then increasing that circulation really helps with brain fog and post Lyme disease. So it's really, I don't know if there's a particular one popular thing. Sometimes it's just overall health and wellness, and they're curious.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then how often do they see you? I'm sure it depends on the extent of what's going on, but what is the typical, what would someone typically expect to see if they were to come to you for something? Is this like a year-long program, or how would you recommend, what do you typically recommend?
So it's going to be individual based, but oftentimes it's like every 2 weeks that somebody would come in. If they had something that was a little bit more acute, I had a client that had Bell's palsy recently, and so I said, "You're coming back in next week." That was a friend, so I'm like, "You're coming back in," and it made it was gone, unbelievable. I was so happy, so happy.
Wow.
And of course, you always feel more responsible when it's a friend or a family member too. It's like, oh, I got to prove myself, the ego. But typically, it's every 2 weeks. It's going to be different for everybody. I have a sheet that I go by that Dr. Garcia had come up with of the most common pathogens that most people around, or it's almost like flu that you can almost predict that it's going to go around between certain months. So we go through that. And I go through layer by layer of what there is. So if somebody comes to me, like around my age, that had never really seen anybody for this, they're probably going to have a lot of things going on that they never even realized. When that happens, I just ask the body to triage, what is the most important thing I put on today?
Right.
Actually every couple weeks for, it could be a couple months, it could be several months. It just depends on what it is, how long they've had it, how symptomatic they are, and how well they tolerate the die-off process of the pathogens. So when I say die-off, it's everyday talk to me, but when your immune system just takes like a little laser pointer and kills off these pathogens, they have to get out of the body somehow through the kidneys and the liver and all of those processes of elimination. And that's usually a couple weeks. It's the worst within 3 to 5 days. If they're going to have a reaction, that's usually when they'll see it. It's rare, but sometimes people have some. And I like to tell them ahead of time, look, you might feel a little worse before you feel better. And I don't want you to think that anything I did just made you worse, even though you might feel that way. Just know, and I want that contact with them, that's going to pass and you're going to feel a lot better after that.
That's
And
commonly referred to as the Herxheimer effect, right? Yeah.
you got it. Yep. I only had 2 people that have had it, and it has one person, it was a little bit more, but it didn't stop her from coming. And she said, I felt so much better the next day, better than I had in years. I said, yeah, you had a die off, and I'm glad I told you ahead of time. Otherwise, you never would have come back to me. So there's not a particular straight answer to it. So I'm not being purposely evasive. It's usually just every couple of weeks. Sometimes people will just come in for that one thing that they had some trauma and they feel better, and that's fine with them. They don't choose to come back and clear other things, and that's okay. At a certain point, you'd like to just get them at their best level of pH so that their immune system and body can work the way it's designed. And then maybe once or twice a year, come in for a little tweak, because you're going to get re-exposed.
Just, the dentists have this down. Every 6 months you go in for a cleaning, and a check. So it's kind of the same thing. People often will come for different holistic practices. With hypnosis, it's the same, or the energy clearing, it's the same. They'll come for an acute situation, and then they don't realize that it's often very good to go back for a tune-up, especially if something feels off. Go back for a tune-up, for biomagnetics, for motion code, for hypnosis, whatever, in order to sustain your health. It is something that you have to keep on it. If you're not doing it for yourself, if you've got your own little magnets, you can do it for yourself to a degree. But I think you make a really good point that we need to sustain our health. We've got to have a maintenance plan.
Yeah, that's usually when you get to the real good stuff. Once they're past that acute, crisis, that's when you can really, really get to some magical stuff and get down to the, things that you can clear that can really make a profound difference for people in their life. And it's a little bit of everything. Holistically as a nurse, it's like, what is it that made you have, need to come in for biomagnets? It's like, have you been traveling a lot? What are you eating? What are you drinking? What are you putting on your skin?
It's huge. What do you put on your skin? Absolutely.
Largest organ in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, just our lifestyle, how are we treating ourselves? Most people will really pay attention to their physical health, but boy, do they resist doing mental health stuff. I think it's just, especially men. I think it's because they're supposed to be so strong and stoic all the time. And it's just not fair, to not treat our men well.
And we really need to have balance on all levels. We have to pay attention to our physical body and keep it strong and healthy through what we do, our diet, our exercise, water, all of that. And then we also have to keep the mental strong and the spiritual strong, all of it, emotion and spiritual. Yep.
And knowing your limits. I mean, also oftentimes I refer, because if I need somebody that needs energy clearing, they're coming your way, girl. Yeah. And I will have an instinct to say, I really think you should see Lois. I trust her. I've seen her myself. When I refer, I like to refer to people I've seen myself and I trust. And I know I'm putting them in good hands and, with confidence and competence and just that loving, safe, they need that. And so it's really just saying who's the best suited to get them to that spot where they need to be. It's not always going to be me. Right. Lord knows I'm a businesswoman. I'd love to have them come to me, but it's really just, it's an effort, and it all comes around anyway.
That's right. It's more about what does the client need for their health and well-being? I do the same thing. I've referred people to you where I've done certain parts of the work, but recognizing that they would benefit from the biomagnetic protocol or motion code. So I will refer out. I highly believe in it takes a village, it takes multiple people, different types of disciplines or holistic practitioners and practices work differently on different bodies. So
Mhm.
each of us needs a little something different, and that's okay. That's by design.
Right.
Yeah,
And some people are just gonna, relate to somebody else different for their own reasons. And you
absolutely.
just don't take it personally. It's just like, no, this is this a good fit? I want it to be a good fit for them.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Wonderful. Well, Kristin, this was fabulous. Thank you for sharing everything that you're doing and your office. You've got a lovely office in Amherst, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm in Amherst, New Hampshire. It used to be a consignment store and they redid it all over. And it's Mind and Body Wellness Center. And I didn't mention I share the space with my beautiful daughter, Fallon Galello.
Yeah.
And that has been another amazing thing. How many people get to say they share a space with their daughter? And she does beautiful work there. And that's been such a big gift.
And
Yeah.
what does she do?
So my daughter is a master esthetician. So
Okay.
she does all the beauty stuff and she calls it a lot of fluff and buff and everything, but she's amazing. She's so intuitive. She's very talented at all doing different tarot readings. And she was really into astrology. I'd love to get her back into that. And again, I see her going another path someday, but we'll see. But she's all the waxing and all that beauty stuff. And her products, what I love when you go in for facials and whatnot are they're all Hylunia is the line she uses, and they're all organic. And there's again, we talked about skin and what we put on our skin. So why open up all those pores and everything and then throw chemicals in there? So she does all the evaluations, and the products are amazing.
Yeah,
So
that's wonderful. Well, we'll have to put her information on there too. You can send that to me and I'll add it. So this is
absolutely.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristin, for
Thank you,
all that
Lois.
you're doing for holistic nurse and extraordinaire. What you're doing for
I
everyone.
wouldn't be here without you, Lois.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. And we'll have you on again. Meanwhile, everyone, look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day. God bless.